Welcome to All Things Social Security. Enjoy your video.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening. It is Friday, fraud law review, but more importantly, it is Red Friday, where we have an opportunity to consider and perhaps honor our deployed members, currently deployed, who are not able to be home with their families like most of us can be. So I just always like to give a little time on Fridays to give them extra thoughts, extra prayers, and extra gratitude. So anyway, let's get on with Friday fraud law review then. And this one it's kind of scarce on some of the details I would want it to say, but let's get to it. It's Utah, and this particular gentleman who's 69 years old. I'm not going to say his name because he has been indicted but not convicted. And as you know, I am a great fan of the Constitution and particularly the policy of innocent until proven guilty in the United States. So I don't like to denigrate somebody until they're convicted. Then I'll go to town on them. So let's get to it. This is out of Salt Lake City, Utah. This is a 69-year-old Utah man. I call him the bad actor. He did a doozy for over 20 years. And that, the title of the article is Utah man indicted after fraudulently obtaining over $1 million between Social Security benefits and a private insurance policy benefits. $1 million, 20 years. All that scuttlebutt we heard the last few years, like there is no fraud, there is no need for Doge. People are basically honest. Even it's only like 3% of the GDP is fraud. I made that part up. But yeah, we just read it every day. And sometimes they're as big as $1 million from one little individual who's not even a professional con person. And sometimes it's far more when it's like an outfit like what recently has come to light in Minnesota with the daycare center. I suppose, I don't know if it's NGOs or that whole scandal that's taken place across the country. Yeah, so that whole Minnesota scam. And that was billions, apparently. So I feel sorry for the Minnesotans who, have been trying to get this out, but the other half of them keeps trying to keep it in. All right. So Salt Lake City man, 69 years old. Like I said, I'm not going to say his name. I will say his name, he could be a female. I don't think he is. I think that's just the way he used to name people. These names were more I don't know, double gendered. Whereas now these are maybe not the first name, that can be unisex, but the middle name traditionally was, well, in current days is female. I just thought was interesting. But I've had some close, I guess what I would call close friends through working in this area. And, you meet people from all over the country. And particularly with older generations, sometimes the men had girly names, just the way it was. Girls didn't really have masculine names, but the boys sometimes had what today we consider a woman's name. So I don't know, just kind of interesting. When this comes out, you guys could take a look. So according to court documents, back in 2004, so we're talking over 20 years ago, this bad actor Utah man. So at the time, what was he? He was like not even 50 yet. So he was in his 40s. And this lasted until June of 2025. So they just uncovered it like 6 months ago. 6 months ago. He allegedly executed a scheme to assume the identity of a person. They call it person number one. And the funny thing is they say number one, but they never talk about a person number two. I suspect there's a lot more to go with this than what they're giving us. Because they say he assumed the identity of person number one who received disability income from a private insurance company. And they call that company number one. So again, I wonder if he had a bigger scheme than what we are seeing here. Because why would you have to put a one after it if it's the only one? And also, the scheme included Social Security benefits from the SSA. And he used the identity that he stole from person number one to obtain both those monies for himself. He had access to person number one's name, social security number, and alleged signature. And in this day and age, I don't know if that's very hard. Under person number one, stolen identity, this fellow obtained over $1 million from the SSA and company number one. So it sounds like combined, it was $1 million, over $1 million. Court documents allege that as part of the scheme, this bad actor Utah man corresponded on multiple occasions with the SSA and company number one. Of course, obviously, he was misleading them and all that kind of stuff. Until about March of 2025, he continued to operate under person number one's identity to fraudulently obtain person number one's benefits. This is about all they give us, guys. I was saying earlier that I wonder if person number one was deceased and bad actor Utah man just kept that. I mean, if person number one was alive, this would have been resolved a lot faster. He'd noticed that his benefits weren't being paid him. That's a lot of money, right? And he would have made a stink and it would have been discovered that they'd been diverted and whatever. So I'm thinking maybe it's another one of those dead man walking things, the ones that didn't happen and there was no dead people receiving benefits from the SSA. Those of us that pay attention here, whether or not we work in the field, we already knew that wasn't true. It's totally false. Whenever you saw that in the media, it was like, what are you, parrots? You're just parroting someone who said that and it's not even real. Yeah, so they don't give us that much. But I'm wondering if the person was dead. I wonder if he knew the person. That happens a lot. If you've watched this Friday Fraud Law Review a few times, you'll have heard of other ones where a family member doesn't tell the SSA when their beneficiary family member passes away. The SSA continues to send checks as usual. When they do their occasional following up, I guess to confirm if the person's still alive. I don't know. And I don't even know how they do that. Apparently someone signed things saying the person was or pretending to be the person most likely, whether it's forging signatures or whatever. And the money keeps coming. What is flabbergasting to me is that can happen for 20 years. And there's no greater insights, no greater propensity to catch it way earlier. Because let's face it, I don't think our 69-year-old Utah man is going to be able to pay back the $1 million. Let's say half of it is to SSA, and it might not be. I mean, I don't know what the proportion is, but that's a big chunk of money. Times that by $1 million or whatever, how much fraud there is, and that's what's getting stolen out of the fund. Makes you wonder if we stopped allowing that, if the fund wouldn't be so precarious at all times. Now, there are other problems with how the fund is handled, I'm sure, not the least of which is when we do not make having a strong economy with a strong labor force our first, if not one of our first top priorities at all times in this country, and don't let us get distracted by other things. That is where 85% or more of the funds for the SSD and SSR retirement program come from. So when you start convincing people that they don't need to work and they can be dependent, guess what happens? The people that did work and that are trying to get their Social Security, retirement, or disability are out of luck because the young workers aren't paying into it. And that's how it continues to grow and stay alive. So I don't know. We're stuck with that. He's charged with, what did I say? The wire fraud, mail fraud, theft of government property, and aggravated identity theft. I don't know what makes it aggravated. I'd love to know all these details. I'd also like to know, and they usually do mention this, but they didn't mention it in this article, what are the possible sentences? We never see them get, the high end of the guidelines. I just don't see it here. I think he deserves it, and I usually do, and you always hear me being emming about, you got a slap on the wrist. But anyway, if anyone is in the Salt Lake City, downtown Salt Lake City area next week on the 13th, what day would that be? If Friday is the 9th, is that Tuesday? January 13th, 2026 at 1:30 p.m. in courtroom 8.4 before a U.S. magistrate judge at the Orangey Hatch United States District Courthouse in downtown Salt Lake City. Do they let the public in there? I would like to think so. But I really don't know. But wouldn't that be fun to watch it for real? I used to do that when I first started practicing solo. I was young. I only had a few years under my belt, but I was definitely not going back to the uh, law firm life. And I would go when I wasn't highly busy the first year at least or two. You're trying to get clients, and I wasn't doing Social Security. I was doing every other area of law under the sun in New Jersey. I would go to my county courthouse, which was Morristown, New Jersey, and I would sit in on trials just to like gain more. And ironically, I was probably one of the few young lawyers out of my law school class, which I went to school in Newark, that was trying cases right out the door, really. My first trial was about 5 weeks after I passed the bar. I was scared shitless, as you can imagine, I didn't have a lot of guidance. So I really felt out of my league. I think I won it though, but it was like the kind of thing where the evidence should have led that way. And I was doing at the time auto insurance defense work. So it was a trial with a plaintiff who was allegedly hurt in an accident that was allegedly caused by my client. And therefore, the two issues to fight against are A, if it's not clear that my client was liable or fully liable, you want to fight on that issue. And then also, the extent of damages, are they really as bad and worth the amount of money, that the claimant thinks it is? I say claimant. I've been in SSD too long, over 20 years now here too. But the plaintiff. And so that was kind of a benefit, but I definitely felt like, oh my gosh, I got to watch more. I've got to watch more. I've got to watch more. So I'd go up there, take a lunch in Morristown. It was about half hour from my house, and I would just sit in and watch and just see how others did it, particularly some of my more experienced colleagues at the time. And back then it was almost all men. But anywho, so here's a bad actor, guys. I'm curious to see what sentence he's going to get. I'd love to see more details. I might have to do some other research to find out, just out of curiosity. If I can pull a breather and get the time, I'm going to do that. All right. Have a good one, guys. TGIF. And thank you again, deployed members, for what you do for us. I for sure appreciate it. And I think so does the rest of the audience. Bye-bye.